This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net. This podcast is being brought to you through Cleveland 13 News. Your purpose, your power, a journey to authenticity. Now, to all of our listeners out there, I want you to know that we have lots of dreams. And I know when I was graduating from high school, my dream, I was going to go to college and I was going to be one of the first women on TV doing broadcast news. I just knew I could do it. However, my parents had a different thought pattern behind that. And they said, it's 1968. There are no women on the news. Oh, yes, there's Betty Friedan, and she will show you a refrigerator. Is that what you want to do? And I said, no, I know what I want to do. I went to college. My parents said, we will pay for it if you become a teacher. So behind their back, I took communication courses, not educational courses. And after 2 years with an associate's degree, I was so proud of what I had done. I called my parents and I said, Saturday is graduation. And they said, you graduated in 2 years? And my answer was, well, I have my associate's degree and I'm going to go on for my bachelor's. And with that, my mother said, pack your bags, you're coming home. You just wasted a lot of money. Now, let's jump forward almost 40 years later. I was staying with my mother, who was in her last stages of life. And I told her that I had to go in the other room to do a podcast. And she grabbed my hand and she said, Karen, are you a famous broadcaster? Mm-hmm. And my answer was, I'm the most famous broadcaster in this house. And that has stayed with me all these years, because the reality of it is we're as famous as we want to be. My guest today is Chandra Lynn, and I met Chandra through podmatch.com. And as I read Chandra's bio, my first thought was, how could somebody who's been so successful in companies that we all dream of and see success, dollar signs, advantages, leave? And you did. So Chandra, take us on your journey. How did you, first of all, get involved in these high profile jobs? And what was the catalyst that said, it's time to leave?
Wow, that is a beautiful intro, and I'm so interested in your story as well. So thank you for having me, and just creating this space for us to share, because I think that our journeys can really help other people reflect on what their choices and know that they are empowered to make significant choices. And before I get into my full story, I believe that we can change the course of our lives in one split second decision. It might take us a while to get to it, but we can. We can choose, to change jobs. So we can choose to, in relationships, we can choose to move. We can choose all these things, and they can set us on new roads. And so if anyone listening is feeling a bit stuck or maybe inauthentic to their truth, there is there's a lot of choices out there. And with one decision, you can make one and change. So let's just say we're all empowered to do that, and we can still do that. We can do that at 75 and 55, right?
Right.
So here we go. I, like you, got a communications degree, my undergraduate, and I graduated from. It sounds a similar story in that I graduated high school early. I graduated college early. I got an MBA. I was walking the stage at 24 years old, so I was really ambitious, and I was already working in downtown San Francisco and major market radio. They actually helped me with my degree, with college assistance. So working for a company does absolutely have advantages. And for lots of young people, I really recommend that they have that experience before becoming an entrepreneur. It's, some people are just entrepreneurs. You're going to be an entrepreneur whether you take a job or not. That's just who you are. I kind of see that in my son right now, who's 19 at UCLA, trying all these companies on for size with internships. And, what I will say is that I learned a lot. And in doing that, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm a really great starter for things. Like get these big ideas, kind of visionary ideas, and I can rally people around them and we can get going and we can have these massive launches and they're really successful. And I'm kind of the person that's on to the next big idea. I have a hard time with sustain. I have a hard time finishing things sometimes because I'm already seeing the vision for the next thing. Knowing that helps me understand what team to bring around, helps me figure out what kind of job is right for me, right? I'm not necessarily the right person to stay in one job at one company, aligning to that one vision for a really long time. I recognized early after working for several companies that, and I worked for legendary entertainment producers like Bill Graham Presents. Bill Graham is now owned by Live Nation. Tickets.com. They were competing with Ticketmaster, top two ticketing companies in the world, working on the biggest entertainment, you know, concerts, tours, sports, theater, the works, anything that sold a ticket. And I went into publishing. So I worked for Guitar Player, Bass Player, Keyboard Magazine, San Francisco Focus Magazine, KQED TV. So there was a lot of media in my background. But I kept kind of jumping. Like I'd stay in a job for 2 to 3 years, and I just kind of feel my soul like starting to wither a little. And it wasn't anything bad about them. It was just me wanting to be on to the next thing. So I decided to become a consultant. And that's when things exploded. And I was able to work for Apple, Mercedes, Tyra Banks. My Tyra Banks story blows people away. We can get into it if you want, how I connected with that, the supermodel. And, to this day, I am consulting, but I'm able to be picky and choosy about my projects. And it opened up space for me to get certified as a transformation coach. And this year, I wrote this book, Root to Rise. So it is a self-help book, and that's the fastest way that I could tell my story. So happy to follow up with any questions that you have.
Well, one of the things that I'm hearing from you is that, and I find this similarity, is that we both come up with ideas, we're excited about them, we start putting them together, but then we realize in many cases it's a great idea, but I'm not the one to take it to the next step. And if we're lucky, we find those people that can take it to the next step. Otherwise, sometimes it does go on the bookshelf and it's going to sit there until maybe a year from now, 10 years from now, that it's like, now I've found either I have the energy to do it or I found somebody else who can do this. I never thought of myself like that until I was forced out of corporate America.
Mhm.
And when I was forced out, my first thought was, what am I supposed to do now? I had gone back to school to complete my bachelor's and to get my master's because I thought I needed it for corporate America. And within months of getting it, it was like I wasn't in corporate America. Now, what do I do? And I'm very lucky. It was my youngest son who said to me, do what you've always wanted to do.
Mm.
And I said, well, you're doing your internship in internet radio. That's really what I want to do. And the two of us went head to head because it was like I was going to take his dream away from him. And yet he knew he was going to take it away from me if he said no. And so we both agreed. I went to the station where he was working. I gave them a proposal. They took me on. And our podcasting was so different from each other that there was no going head to head. And we were a great support team for each other. But I knew that's not where he wanted to be long term. And so as mom, I kept leading him, dream. What else do you want to do? And he finally got into sports and he's been working in sports ever since. And so we saw him struggle through that pattern. He's seen me struggle as well. But even our struggles feel good at the end of the day because we're doing what is important to us. And so that's just sounds like what you chose to do too, that I'm good at a lot of things, but what is it that I'm best good at? And it sounds like it's helping others find their purpose. So,
Yeah, and in my marketing business, I'm able to do that even with marketing strategy because people need to cut it's hard to see the forest through the trees sometimes when you're in the middle of your company's, ecosystem and a consultant can come in and help to create clarity. And I'm sorry if you were going to ask me a question. I just got so
no.
excited. I'm excited by your story too because I have a son and he's following a little bit of my footsteps, but also finding his own path. And you're a little bit ahead of me. Mine's 19 at UCLA, studying music industry, which is a big part of my roots. And so I also thought when you were saying that how abundant the world is and how it's not really about going head to head, but yeah, I understand you didn't want to step on his
Right.
right? But yes, you guys are so different that there's no way that you're going to be doing the exact same thing. I think it's kind of cool that you can kind of share interests. I do think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree a lot of times.
Well, you're so right there because if I think,
I've got cats who love these curtains. I'm
oh,
sorry if it's
that,
distracting,
oh,
but
that's,
I probably shouldn't have had them closed because they will climb the.
um, I grew up in a home where my parents, they wouldn't have called themselves entrepreneurs, but they were.
Mhm. Mm.
Um, my mother had a love for sewing, and so she would sew for people. She became a seamstress, but all this was sideline things that she did. She
Yeah.
loved to bake. She would bake for people. My father um, was a writer, and so I learned from the two of them that if this is something that you love to do, cultivate it. But growing up, even though I saw that, I still saw my peers reaching for the stars. And I didn't know how to do that because my parents just seemed to be happy. I didn't see them reaching for the stars. I saw them doing the things that made them happy. And so I fought against it. It was like, I got to marry well. I have to have a career. I have to do all these things. And when I realized that as much as it sounded great, it wasn't me. And I didn't find me till I was 60 years old. And so my message out there is it's okay if it doesn't happen when you're 19 and going to college. It's okay if it doesn't happen at 30 when you land your first really good corporate job, as long as it happens. And you have to be open to it. And that's something that I didn't believe in for a long time, that if I just opened myself up and said, I'm available for what comes next, that good things could come next. I mean, that's what happened with me with Cleveland 13 News. You know, I knew what they were doing. I heard it in the background. I knew people involved, but I didn't think there was a place for me until I contacted them and said, I have an idea. And it was like they were open, I was open. Um, and I think that's probably what you're finding in your consulting world is that when you finally do connect with that client, they're ready to say, help me see what's down the path. So tell me what it's like with a first time client with you.
With the first time client,
Yeah.
the first thing I do is understand their world, right? I can't give any advice until I really understand, their purview and kind of what their challenges are. And for those people who are studying business or have studied business and want to a little technique, do a SWOT analysis, which is basically look at their strengths, help them inventory that for themselves, even their weaknesses, their opportunities in the market, and their threats in the market. And just that exercise alone can illuminate a lot for them and for you as, getting to know their world. It's a great actual technique that you're taught in school, but it has real world applications because it helps you quickly understand their world and they get aha moments along the way, right? And you're also seen as the guide through, a process so they can start to build trust in you. In doing that, you can start laser focusing on the things that they, need to focus on, like if they do have big opportunities or if they are addressing some competitive threats or other threats in their business. It can be related to, like, for example, I work with music instrument manufacturers who had tariffs and coming in to play in a way that they never had before. And so I saw some of them really lean into software, and that's been keeping them through the hard times. And so, ooh, I gave myself a thumbs up.
Love that.
I love that. Hey, so yeah, we'll see if the heart one works. No. Oh yeah, it
There
does.
it
Okay.
goes. I love it.
Fun with Zoom. So yeah, I mean, I would say that a first-time client is really about understanding their world, helping to create those aha moments, helping them see the forest through the trees. And once we do that, we can prioritize the strategies. It's okay to throw a bunch of spaghetti on the wall and go, okay, let's explore all this stuff. And then you're the one that helps them figure out what sticks. You're the one that, can put it into a plan and get their buy-in along the way that yes, those are the priorities and yes, they're committed to it. Because when you leave, those are their marching orders. And so you want to leave a mark, right? You want them to really thank you at the end of the day for putting them on the right path that they saw through. Or they hire you at that point to help them see it through. And that is a way to create a plan where they might even feel like they have a dependency on you.
Absolutely. And, I don't think you or I want our clients to be dependent on us. In fact, I have one client who we've been talking now for almost 2 years. She keeps coming back. And I love her to death. Okay. And she's making progress, but she's dependent on me leading her to make the progress. And we finally sat and talked about it. And I said, I understand what you need, but I need you now to go back and think, do I really need this? Or do I have the ability to make these changes? And the last time I talked to her was about 2, 3 weeks ago. And I was coming off some very tough times here at home. And she said, I keep hearing your voice in my head. She said, I can make my own decisions. I said, well, you have been all along, but you just keep gravitating back to get my permission for you to make your own decisions. And she wrote me this beautiful letter that said, now I understand what coaching is all about. She said, I may need coaching in another area of my life, but you have given me the opportunity to create tools to make my life a better place. And that to me is exactly what I've been doing for myself as well. I mean, I'm very vulnerable. I put out blogs almost every day that tell people, hey, I'm struggling. And it's like, I'm struggling, but I'm going to use certain tools to get me through the struggle. And part of my blogging is the tool that I use because once I put it out there, I then see it and go, what can I do about this? Because we all
We
have
are so
choices.
aligned. We are so aligned with exactly your path that you just described with blogging about tools that work that people thank you for is totally what I live for. I started blogging the exact same way, and ultimately there was some other things going on that allowed me to build a framework of all these tools. And that's really what this book is about, the Root to Rise book. It's Root to Rise itself is a framework. It started as an online course, then it went into workshops. And during the pandemic, when I couldn't do workshops anymore, I wrote the book. It's like the deepest offering of all those tools. It's all put together. It has an infographic, it guides everyone through it. And it's a lot of what you're talking about. And one of the things that also caught me about what you said is this idea of permission. I had a similar coaching experience with a woman who had been in major market radio her whole career. We met back when that was my first job out of college. And, here we are like 20 something years later. She stayed in that job. She was in sales. She was a powerful, she called herself the eagle. Like it was part of her identity to the core. And I was shocked to find out that she actually said she was like terrorized at night because she was just, and I was like, what are you using this language is so strong. And it was just that she had for so long not answered this calling inside to grow into other aspects of herself. She was, I told her, you're a multifaceted diamond. That eagle is one of your facets. This terror, this whatever's happening to you is just your call to grow, to be able to show other facets of yourself. And the permission. Okay, so I said, what are you waiting for? I can give you permission to change jobs right now, but that's not what's going to do it. You have to learn to give yourself permission to do this and to realize this is not a limitation. It's not that you're not the eagle anymore. You're going to change that and use those tools for the next evolution of yourself and your career. And we talked a lot about permission. She did leave within 2 weeks of me talking with her about the permission thing and the eagle. It really was tied to an identity piece, right? This identity. She really needed to understand that she wasn't just laying that down. She thought that leaving would be a failure. No, it was growth, and it was about learning about the human needs and learning about giving yourself permission and learning about how your identities can sometimes keep you stuck if you're not willing to shed old versions of yourself, right? We had this amazing conversation, and she ended up she owns two hot yoga studios. She is a creative writer for in doing marketing ads and helping somebody write a biography. And she's a comedian. She's a stand-up. It's
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
She's just flourished. And yes, it's still hard, right, to be entrepreneurial and to say yes to the universe, like you were saying about all these things you're called to do or interested in. But it's so much more fulfilling. And I'm just so proud of her being on her own path. And as a coach, of course, it gives me so much joy to like be part of that process, but it's really her just making these choices, make one decision, leave that job and start something new that circles back to our original, opening conversation about this, these transformations that we can make in our own lives with one split second decision.
Well, and so many of us worry about making choices. We're always afraid that choice is going to be wrong. Um, my husband worked for a very small software company back in the 80s. Let's see. Oh, their name was Microsoft. Yes, when they first started up. And he was working remotely at the time here in Ohio. And he knew they were a growing company, but he didn't understand the whole facet of it. And he loved his job. It helped him truly grow. But there came a point where staying here in Ohio was not an option. And it was either moving out to Washington or moving to one of their call centers in North Carolina. And my husband didn't want to leave Ohio. This was his home. And so he made the choice that he wasn't going to leave. So he found himself unemployed temporarily. What he did was he took all that knowledge and he went to one of the major companies here in Cleveland and he posed himself as a consultant and a local expert on Microsoft Office, which he was. He had been doing alpha and beta testing for years. And so together we created this consulting company, which took us to year 2000 when a lot of consulting in IT sort of fell apart. However, it gave us the strength and energy to see that we had more going on inside of us than we even knew. In fact, the day that he told me, he wanted to do this, I looked at him and I said, I hate that I'm going to repeat this, but I said, who's going to want to hire you? Who are you? And he said, I'm just going to say, I'm the expert in Ohio. and it worked. Okay. He didn't say he was better than all the other experts. He was an expert in Ohio. And so we had this thriving business for 7 years. The problem was when year 2000 came along, it hit him straight in his head. And he wasn't sure what he could do with it. And so, again, we had to reinvent ourselves. And when I chose to do podcasting, he was the first one standing there going, okay, what do you need? And of course, I overspent in those beginning years of what I needed. Um, but he's been that supportive link. I think when we decide to make choices, we have to tell ourselves it's okay if it's not the right choice for now, or if I have to tweak what that choice is. And I think that's what we're all so afraid of, because when he chose not to leave Microsoft, when he chose to leave Microsoft, he saw all of his friends and colleagues moving up the ladder, and he's seen many of them become millionaires. And there are days that he goes, I was stupid. And I look at him and go, but were you? Would you have been happy if you would have moved us away from family, away from friends, away from a city that you happen to love? And he can honestly say, no, he wouldn't have been happy. So, choices, we all have them. And I'm assuming your book helps us with that.
It's 100% about this. Okay, so the book Root to Rise is about creating a root system. So you were talking about like your home was one of those roots, right? Because you had friends and you had family there. And so it's learning. I define 5 root areas of life. And then I teach about, I have an adapted version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs where I'm able to show you how you've been meeting your needs in these 5 different areas of your life and where you might have gotten stuck along the way. And there's a whole valuation process that people can see. Oh, root might be really strong, but this one, because it's strong, maybe the other ones didn't get nurtured that much. I just was talking to a business owner, this woman who has only been in business for a year. She opened her own cabinetry retail store in a popular area. She said, the only route I have been feeding is my business career route. I am single, my health is suffering, I don't have t enough time with my friends and family. She says all of my other routes are in bad shape. So now I have to go and, turn to getting back to my own health, getting back to, she goes, I hope to find a partner. I'm single. I want to find someone and, I want to have more time for myself. And she's realizing by strengthening one root, other roots started to suffer. And so she's learned. So this book is about balancing those roots according to human needs psychology. And then that's just the first phase. The second phase is about building emotional resilience, using different tools like we talked about the emotional triad, balancing body, mind, and spirit, there's lots and lots and lots of tools about building your emotional resilience. So when things happen in life, that it can be loss, it can be job change, it can be all these things that really can topple our tree. I use a lot of nature-based metaphors in it. You have that, anchored, balanced, rooted, grounded feeling inside to weather those storms. And then the third phase, final phase is the rise. It's the one we're all, it's about our dreams and what we want to be known for and what we want to give back and where we contribute. And I have fruit on the cover of the book as a symbol of when we're healthy, when our roots are balanced, you know, our our rise it has fruit. We're bearing fruit. It's the product of our, the fruits of our labor, and we have something to give back. That is what really is, I think, at the core of fulfillment. It's probably why, you're on this mission with your podcast to help people and to share, this valuable information because it is your fruit you're offering back out into the world for those people out there who are, they're going to come away with this maybe feeling some aha moments or something that they can put into their life and make a difference in their lives. And that creates a ripple effect and they can share it with other people that, then the ripple grows. And so I'm all about, people feeling fulfillment through contribution, through feeling, a sense of being on a purpose, that they choose. It's not something, bestowed upon them. It's something that they can choose, and then they can change and they can choose something else. And when you were talking about, not being sure about the decisions that you're making. I use the metaphor of climbing a mountain. You only have one vista based on the part of the trail that you're on. You have a certain view, and can only make your decision based on that view. And as you climb the mountain and circle around to another area, you're going to have another view, and you have a chance of course correcting. You have a chance of taking in more information, having the experience from, the trek that you just been on, to make another decision. And you just do that, and you keep, climbing that mountain up to the top, and then the vista up there is just so amazing. So you have that purpose that you're on to get to this point, but it's the journey. It's the journey that where you're going through this, expansive contraction thing, the whole time. And that's life. Yes, the journey of life, right? We're all just growing. And if we just block ourselves from growing sometimes because of self-esteem issues, just not feeling like we can give ourselves permission to be our authentic selves, to, align to our truth, to align the people in our lives to the truth. I mean, you did that with your husband. He did that with you. You've been embracing that to support each other. It takes you aligning to what you want first, and then, bringing everybody around you on that journey. And some people are not going to be as supportive as others, and so there's challenges there. And this book is really about giving you tools to be able to navigate that whole journey. It's quite amazing, like how it's manifested itself in my clients and in the readers. It's just been unbelievable.
Well, you touched on something very important, and that is judgment. And we're hearing the judgment all around us, even if we imagine what we're hearing. And oftentimes we are imagining it. And we're judging ourselves. I know up until last year, I was on this journey that, the more podcasts I produced each day, the bigger I was going to be. And I found that, number one, I was making myself ill. Number two, I wasn't engaging the way I wanted to with my guests. And I wasn't promoting at the rate that I wanted to. And all of a sudden, I just found myself stagnant. It's like, so what am I proving? And who am I proving it to? But I kept hearing in my head other podcasters saying to me, oh, if you do one less a week, you're not going to be as successful. And then I had to ask myself, what does that mean to me? And when I finally realized what success meant to me was engaging with my client, engaging with my guest. And if I'm doing 20 coaching sessions a week, that's 20 hours just for coaching without processing in between those sessions. If I'm doing 10 to 15 podcasts a week, that's another, 10, 15 hours a week. And I realized there was no space for me. And on Christmas Eve, I fell and broke my right shoulder. And 2 weeks later, I had surgery. And so for many weeks, I was walking around like this. I only had one hand to type with. But the pain was intense, and I was in extensive therapy. And it was my physical therapist who said to me, I don't think all that pain is in your shoulder. And I said, oh, of course it is. I said, look at my scar. I was looking at all the wrong things. And she said, no. She said, I want you to talk about what's really getting to you. And what got to me was, I don't have the energy to do all these podcasts. I can't see this many clients. And she said, so do yourself a favor. Get online, cancel everything out, and reschedule what you can do. And let me tell you, she was the best coach I've ever had because she was right. Within weeks, physical therapy was getting easier and easier for me. Sitting at the computer was easier, but I wasn't sitting here my whole life. And when I look back at what I was creating previously, I was spending a good 60 hours a week just on business. It had nothing to do with personal emails, anything else. Um, I also found that at the end of the day, I didn't want to cook dinner. I didn't want to go to the grocery store. I just didn't want to do a lot of things. And then I realized, but even though I hate grocery shopping, I do get some pleasure out of it. I get to think about meals. I get to think about things that are healthy. And so when I realized, hey, I don't hate it as much as I thought, but I need to be able to do it at my pace. And I think that's what you're saying the book is really about, is learning how to pace ourselves and not judge ourselves by what we think everybody else expects of us.
Yes, and the thing is that you were describing how you were balancing your root system. And what's interesting is that, I also saw myself in you when you were talking about somebody said to you, if you do all these podcasts, then you'll be successful. And as a coach and as an author now, I cannot tell you how much is coming at me on social media for what I need to do to be successful. Like there's a program for it. There's a something I pay for here and there's somebody else who made millions and sold millions of copies doing this and I had to learn that and I would literally be scattered to the wind, trying to chase all of this advice that's out there for me. And I loved what you did, where you went inside and you said, what is the most important thing? You realize that it's about engagement, presence, connection. This idea of connection is one of our core human needs. We need to feel that intimacy and that connection with other people. And so you were listening to your human needs. And the book has breaks down all six human needs and it even gives you code words. So when you talk, I can pick up which need you're talking about, whether you're aware of it or not. And I could say, oh, she's serving her need for connection. And when you talk about giving back, I'm like, oh, she's serving her need for transcendence and contributing to others. I know how to help people understand their own needs and also the needs of others to determine what they can do to support the people that they care about in their lives. So there's a lot of tools in the book that can do that. I loved that idea of engagement and presence and not it was like more about the quality over quantity, thing. But yes, we get seduced into these ideas of success and we're the ones that get to define it. I'm still actually going through that with the book. Like, what does it mean to be successful? Because I have had amazing review, 5-star reviews online. I just got a 5-star seal from readers' favorites. I got a Kirkus review. I've gotten all these things that the outside world are saying, is successful. And I still don't feel like it's a success yet. I'm in book launch mode and I need more and I need more. And not, when is that friend going to review my book? When is that person that bought it going to review the book? Because Amazon algorithm needs reviews. Like I'm on this and I have to stop myself too and go, okay, what's successful? And I decided success for me is making an impact on even one person's life. And
Exactly.
I've already done that. I've already done that, with this project. And so now everything else is the icing on the cake. And I'm wanting to celebrate it and enjoy it and continue sharing it. But I don't come from this place of like, scarcity and like feeling that that I have to effort. I mean, I still do effort a lot because I feel like there's a certain amount that you have to do in your first year, right? First year of a launch or of anything. But it's joyful. It's more joyful. I don't have to come from, I'm trying to be success. That's my need for significance talking. It's more about, I want to impact lives. I want to really, really impact lives in a positive way. I want to help people love life because it's hard, because it's messy, because there's so much uncertainty in the world. And we're not taught these tools as a general rule. Like we learn so much in school and so much from other people and so much online and everything else. But to learn how to build emotional resilience, to learn how to balance our life root areas, to learn how to give ourselves, self-love and build self-esteem. I mean, all of these things are so important to our journey, yet they're not what's focused on, early in life, and it can take a long time to learn that. I wish I had this when I was 14 years old, wondering who the hell I was.
Oh,
Not
exactly.
necessarily for teenagers, but it can
Yeah.
support if I learned that at that age, whew, like you know, I always tell kids like you gotta respect the people that came before you because they've had hard-won wisdom to help you fast track, and not suffer so much along the way.
Well, it's interesting. I had two older brothers. One brother passed away in September very suddenly.
Mhm.
One of the things that he left to this world, he was a music engineer and a producer. He started ground floor, worked his way up. Um, and his family member and friends, we all got excited, when he won a Grammy, when he was up for all these different awards. Um, and none of us, understood what went behind it, other than we knew it was hard work, but we didn't understand behind him. And one day he said to us, um, yeah, I have the awards. And they sit on a shelf in his home gathering dust. He doesn't even dust, didn't even dust them off because they were just pieces, as he said. But what he brought to this life was an amazing connection with people and helping others along the way. In October, we went up to Saratoga Springs, New York, where he had been living and working in the music industry. And we had a celebration of life. Hundreds and hundreds of people showed up. Some only knew him for a minute. Some of us knew him his whole life. But what we all brought to the table was he lived an authentic life. And his authenticity has helped so many of us, even when we didn't realize it. And when I came home from that, I sat down and realized I've learned a lot from my big brother. And I'm so grateful that no, I don't have any, you know, statues sitting around the house saying, great job, Karen. What I have is what's in my heart. And I can go back over all my podcasts. I can go through my clients and I can point and say, boy, I'm really proud of that person. Not necessarily am I proud of me, I'm proud of that person. They came across authentically, they made the changes they wanted to make. And my journey may have influenced a little bit, and especially with, individuals that are, in their retirement age, and I've gotten them to get off their rocking chair. And, but I didn't do it alone. They did it. Okay. I gave them my hand and said, if you want to get off the rocking chair, here's my hand. And if they didn't take it, that was their choice. So I'm grateful for what you do. I'm grateful for the book
You.
because this is something that we all should have on our desk. I don't care if you're working as a coach, if you're working as an entrepreneur, or just working to get through life. We need something that is encouraging.
I so appreciate that. And that was another takeaway that I had is if I can be that encouraging voice for someone just during their time of need, I will share with you and thank you for sharing your reflection about your brother. And I want to talk to you later about him because I work with a lot of producers and engineers. I handled artist relations for Avid's Pro Tools, which is may have been one of
Yeah.
the tools that he used. I'd like to learn more, but I will tell you a story, which is that being that starter personality, had started on the book a few times. Other things like with my marketing consulting and stuff, took the front burner. I kept putting it to the back burner. And about a year and a half ago, my best friend of 40 years, I mean, we met in the sixth grade, died by suicide. And I went through a grieving process and I'm still am, but um what it did was it gave me this fire to be that encouraging voice for someone. And it was I have a area of my book that I call transmuting pain into purpose. And that is what helped me become a finisher, which is not my strong suit, to finish this book because you have to have your why, and my why was if of course, with her, there was a medical condition, so it wasn't so much like what could I've done differently as far as coaching her, being encouraging to her. I know that at the very end, like, she loved me and appreciated everything I did. But if someone out there just needs to know that they're empowered through one decision, they can change their life, or by understanding where they got stuck and that there are techniques and ways of getting unstuck, or they're not connected to something higher or purpose that, fuels them or lights their fire or something, to see that it's possible for them, that then this book has done its job. It's literally a lifeline. It's literally a lifeline for people who are just wanting, to generally improve their life, but also those people who are contemplating whether life is worth living. So I feel like, and I invite anyone frustrated, struggling, depressed, anything going on with you to at least give it a chance. What do you have to lose, right? And if there's any financial hardships or whatever, I'd be happy to make the book available for free. I just wanted to get out to people to help them and be that encouraging voice and use the tools that I know. When I was naming the book, there was a lot of names that came up about like trying to describe what it was. And I was kind of like, it's a guidebook, because it's a real framework. And I wanted to call it the Wise Book. It's about hard-won wisdom. It's about real coaching tools. It's about all of this nature-based wisdom, that's out there. And I decided to go more straight ahead with it, but I definitely think that it's about tapping into other people's wisdom too. I'm illustrating people's stories in here as well, case studies and stuff. And like you said, when a client does that for themselves, you may support them along the way, and they might try to credit you with the transformation, but it's really each person's personal responsibility to make those decisions and to grow. And I always say, if everybody shows up willing to do the personal growth and development work. I know nonfiction isn't for everybody. It's not something that, people worried, oh, if I crack that open, then I'm going to have to
Yeah.
actually do all the work. But if we all take personal responsibility for our mental health and our growth, what an amazing place this would be. You know what
Oh,
I mean? So that's what this is an invitation for, is just to grow and to show up as your best authentic self.
so how can our listeners find your book, follow you, get more knowledge?
The easiest way is to go to chandralynn.com, chandralynn.com, because I have links from there to my marketing business and my personal growth and development tools, and including the online course, including the book, including one-on-one coaching with me. So just go to my page. It ended up being the easiest when you're an entrepreneur with multiple brands.
Yep.
It's just you got to give them one place to go that can get them where they want to go. And all my socials are linked up from there. So just go to chandralynn.com and it'll take you where you want to go.
I love it. Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me today. I
Such a
certainly
blessing.
and enjoy San Francisco. One of your football teams lost to my football team yesterday.
Oh, congrats.
And, my team has been losing every week. So it just felt good to beat somebody. But
Oh yeah. Well, good for you. Yeah, I actually did some work with both the 49ers and the Oakland Raiders when they were
right.
in
Yeah,
Oakland when I was in ticketing. So I of course love my Bay teams, but every you gotta lose sometimes to be humble, right? You got that
absolutely.
hopefully will turn up their fire to fight a little harder next time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. I will be in
You.
touch and have
Thank
a
you, Sharon.
wonderful day. Bye bye now.
Bye.